Welcome. Find a place where your body can be still. Soft pillows, warm blankets, and let your eyes close. Whenever you are ready, let your shoulders fall, soft and heavy. Let your jaw soften. Let your hands rest, open and easy. Tonight, we will travel together, far away, to the gentle countryside of old France. A land of slow rivers and stone bridges and warm yellow fields. A land where shepherds rest in the long grass and where the wind moves slowly through tall oak trees. 3 quiet fables from a kind old poet named Jean de La Fontaine will carry you gently into sleep. So breathe in slowly and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out, and let us begin. Our first fable, The Oak and the Reed. Long, long ago, in a quiet green valley, beside a slow river, there grew a great oak tree. He was very old. His trunk was wide. His roots were deep. His branches reached high into the soft blue sky. He had stood in that valley for 200 years. At his feet, beside the slow river, there grew a small green reed. The reed was thin and tall and slender. She swayed in even the gentlest breeze. She bent low when the wind blew. She rose again when the wind passed. One golden afternoon, the great oak looked down at the small reed and spoke in a deep, slow voice. "Little reed," he said, "you must have a very hard life. Even the smallest sparrow that lands on your stem bends you to the ground. Even the soft breath of a passing fox makes you tremble." The reed listened quietly. "Look at me," the oak said gently. "I am tall, I am strong. I do not bend in the wind. I do not tremble when the rain falls. I am like a great mountain, standing firm in the storm." The reed turned her small green head and smiled softly. "Dear oak," she said, in a voice as soft as falling petals, "you are kind to worry about me, but the wind that bends me never breaks me. I lean, I rise, I lean again, I rise again, and I have lived here beside the river for many quiet years." The oak did not answer. He looked up at the sky and felt the warmth of the afternoon sun on his great branches. The days passed slowly. Summer turned to autumn. The leaves of the oak grew golden and red and brown. They fell one by one into the slow river and floated away. Then came a quiet evening when the wind began to rise. It came from the north. It came across the long fields. It moved through the tall grass like a long, slow river. The reed felt it first. She bent her small green head low toward the water. The wind passed over her. She rose again. But the oak, the great old oak, did not bend. He stood tall. He stood firm. He held his branches high. The wind grew stronger. The clouds rolled low across the sky. The reed bent again. The wind passed. The reed rose. The oak stood firm. And then, in the deep of the night, a great gust of wind came down the valley. The kind of wind that comes only once in many years. The reed bent very low. She touched her green head to the ground. The wind passed over her like a long, slow wave. But the great oak, in his strength, did not bend. And with a soft, slow sound, like a long sigh, the great old tree fell. His deep roots pulled gently from the warm earth. His great branches lay quietly across the meadow. In the morning, the sun rose. The valley was still. The river ran slow. The small green reed stood beside the water, swaying gently in the soft morning breeze. She looked at the great fallen oak, and she was sad, for he had been her companion for many quiet years. But she remembered his deep voice and his kind heart, and she knew that strength is not only in standing tall. Sometimes strength is in bending and rising and bending and rising again. The slow river kept flowing. The wind moved softly through the grass, and the small green reed swayed gently in the warm morning sun. And as the years passed, new little reeds grew beside her, and the meadow filled with their soft green stems, and they all swayed together in the long, slow wind, beside the slow river, in the quiet green valley. Our second fable, The Shepherd and the Sea. In another part of old France, where the green hills rolled gently down to the long gray sea, there lived a quiet shepherd named Alcidor. He was a young man with kind eyes and a soft voice. He wore a long brown cloak. He carried a long wooden staff. He lived in a small stone hut at the edge of a meadow above the sea. Each morning, he would wake before the sun. He would step outside and look at the wide open water. He would listen to the slow waves. His flock was small, 12 white sheep. They knew his voice. They followed him gently across the green hills. He led them each morning to the long meadow at the top of the cliff. He sat on a flat, warm stone. He watched them graze in the soft grass. He listened to the wind move through the long, yellow flowers. And he was happy. For many quiet years, he was happy. But one evening, as he sat on his flat, warm stone, he looked out across the wide, gray sea. He saw the fishing boats coming home from a long day at sea. He saw them ride low in the water, heavy with silver fish. The fishermen sang quietly as they sailed back into the harbor. Their songs drifted up across the cliff and reached the shepherd's ear. That night, in his small stone hut, the shepherd could not sleep. He thought of the fishermen. He thought of their boats. He thought of the silver fish shining in the moonlight. In the morning, he sold his 12 white sheep. He sold his long wooden staff. He sold his small stone hut. With all the money, he bought a small fishing boat. He bought a long net. He bought a barrel of salt. He set out to sea. The first day was calm. The sea was a soft gray mirror. The sky was a soft blue dome. The shepherd, now a fisherman, smiled at his new life. His net came up full of silver fish. He sang quietly to himself as he sailed back to the harbor. He sold his fish. He earned good money. He slept well that night. The second day was kind. The sun was warm. The wind was gentle. The fish were many. The third day was the same, and the fourth, and the fifth. For many weeks the shepherd sailed his small boat and pulled silver fish from the sea and slept well in his small new harbor cottage. But one quiet morning, as he sailed far from the shore, the sky began to change. The clouds gathered low. The wind grew restless. The waves grew tall. The shepherd looked at the sky. He looked at the water. He turned his small boat toward home. But the storm came too fast. The waves rose high. The wind howled. The rain fell in long silver sheets. The shepherd held tight to the small wooden tiller. He kept his small boat pointed toward the harbor. He whispered quiet prayers into the wild wind. For hours he was alone with the storm. The boat rose. The boat fell. The waves washed across the deck. And then, slowly, the wind began to soften. The waves grew small. The rain grew light. The clouds began to thin. The shepherd sailed his small boat back into the quiet harbor. He tied it to the wooden dock. He lay down on the warm stones and slept for many hours. When he woke, he sold his small boat. He sold his long net. He sold his barrel of salt. With the little money he had left, he bought 12 new sheep. He bought a long wooden staff. He bought a small stone hut high above the sea, and he led his new flock back to the long meadow at the top of the cliff. He sat on his flat, warm stone. He watched the sheep graze in the soft grass. He listened to the wind move through the long yellow flowers. And below him, far below, the long gray sea moved slowly, back and forth, back and forth. He smiled gently. He had loved the sea. He still loved the sea. But the sea was wild, and the meadow was kind. He stayed in his meadow for many quiet years. The flock grew, the grass grew, the seasons turned. And each evening, as the sun set across the wide gray sea, he sat on his flat, warm stone and watched the fishing boats come home and listened to their quiet songs drift up across the cliff. And he knew that some lives are made of waves and some lives are made of meadows, and his life was a meadow life. The wind moved softly through the long yellow flowers. The sheep grazed in the soft grass. The sea sang its slow song far below, and the shepherd was at peace. Our third and final fable, The Milkmaid and the Pot of Milk. In a small village in the soft green countryside of old France, there lived a young milkmaid named Perrette. She had bright brown eyes and a kind smile. She wore a long gray dress and a soft white apron. Her hair was tied back with a simple blue ribbon. She lived with her mother in a small stone cottage at the edge of the village. They had one small brown cow whose name was Marguerite. Every morning, Perrette would walk through the dewy grass to the small wooden stable. She would speak softly to Marguerite. She would press her cheek against the cow's warm side. She would fill her wooden pail with warm white milk. Then she would carry the pail, slowly and carefully, across the green countryside to the market in the next village. It was a long walk. 3 miles through the fields, past the slow river, across the old stone bridge, up the gentle hill, and down into the busy market square. One soft morning in early summer, Perrette set out with her wooden pail. The sky was a pale rose color. The dew was bright on the grass. The birds were singing in the hedges. She walked slowly. She did not want to spill the precious milk. The pail balanced gently on her head. She held the rim with one steady hand. As she walked, she began to dream. She dreamed about the money she would earn at the market. She thought, "I will sell this milk for many silver coins, and with the silver coins, I will buy 100 small white eggs." She walked on. The sun rose higher. The fields turned soft gold. She thought, "I will bring the eggs home. I will keep them warm. And from the 100 eggs, 100 small fluffy chicks will hatch. They will follow me across the yard, peeping softly." She smiled to herself. She walked a little faster. She thought, "And when the chicks grow, I will sell them at the market. And with the money from the chicks, I will buy a small brown pig. The pig will grow fat in our little yard. He will eat all the apples that fall from our old apple tree. He will sleep in the soft hay, and when he is fat and round, I will sell him to the butcher." She walked faster still. Her wooden shoes tapped lightly on the warm path. She thought, "And with the money from the pig, I will buy a fine brown cow. A real cow, bigger than Marguerite, with a soft brown coat and gentle eyes. The cow will give us much warm milk, and the cow will have a small calf. A little brown calf with white spots and a wet pink nose." Perrette laughed quietly. She skipped a small skip on the path. The pail wobbled gently on her head. She thought, "And the calf will grow up, and he will run across the green meadow, and he will leap into the air, and he will kick his small legs in the warm sunshine." And she, in her quiet daydream, gave a small, joyful jump. The wooden pail tipped from her head. It tumbled into the grass beside the path. The warm, white milk poured out and disappeared into the soft, green earth. Perrette stood very still. She looked at the empty pail. She looked at the wet grass. She looked at her clean apron, now with a small splash of milk on the hem. She sat down slowly on the warm path. She pulled her knees up to her chin. For a moment, she felt very sad. The chicks were gone. The pig was gone. The cow was gone. The little brown calf was gone. But then she looked up at the sky. She looked at the soft white clouds. She looked at the gentle hills. She looked at the bright yellow flowers along the path, and she smiled a small smile. She picked up the empty pail. She walked back along the gentle hill, across the old stone bridge, past the slow river, through the green fields, to her small stone cottage at the edge of the village. Her mother was sitting on the front step, peeling a small apple in the morning sun. "Mother," said Perrette, "I have spilled the milk." Her mother looked up. She smiled gently. She set down her apple. She held out her warm hand. "Then sit beside me," she said, "and we will peel an apple together. And tomorrow we will milk Marguerite again. And tomorrow you will walk to the market again. And tomorrow your dreams will still be there." Perrette sat down beside her mother. The sun was warm. The garden was quiet. The small brown cow stood in the stable, breathing softly, in and out, in and out. And the dreams of 100 fluffy chicks, and a fat brown pig, and a fine brown cow, and a small leaping calf drifted gently across the green countryside like soft white clouds in the warm afternoon sky. So now, dear listener, let your own dreams drift like soft white clouds. The old oak still stands as a kind memory in the valley. The shepherd still sits on his flat, warm stone above the sea. The milkmaid still dreams in her quiet garden. And you, wherever you are safe and warm and gently drifting into sleep. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands rest. Let your breath grow long and slow. The countryside is quiet. The sky is wide. The dreams are kind. Good night. Sleep well.